sermon like this one. Previous to this, we've had Bible school and some special speakers. But we're picking up at Genesis chapter 9 as the flood is over. It has ended, never to happen again, as God directs and tells and speaks here. And begin by reading verses 1 through 7 here, and see what it entails and speaks to us here as the flood has ended. Beginning at verse 1 of chapter 9 of Genesis, "And God blessed Noah and his sons, and said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, upon all that moveth upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand are they delivered. Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green herb have I given you all things. But flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat. And surely your blood of your lives will I require. At the hand of every beast will I require it. At the hand of man, at the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God made he man. And you, be ye fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth, and multiply therein." So we conclude our reading there in this section at verse number 7. And we have, interesting there within the section, we begin it and end it the same way. God tells Noah and everyone that got off, he tells the entire population of the world, all 8 of them, says, "Be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, and be fruitful, multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth, and multiply therein," seeming like he's trying to get a message across, and that message is to be fruitful and multiply. God repeats it twice there, and as he seeks for them to follow in that and to live in that, and to bring forth, to populate the earth through having children, and how God had laid that out for it to be. You wonder if it's just the nature of mankind and his fallen state to not desire to fulfill that requirement. We know that the world and Satan, the evil forces and the evil one being, and others around have desired to and done a very successful job of corrupting the act that brings forth these children, to make it into something that it should not be. But even in our day, we see those that do not desire children, and you wonder if that was something that God knew was going to happen in their day as well. And he, sin was still in the world. It's not that he flooded sin out. He flooded the effects of sin and everything that it had upon the earth there, and the people and the animals and everything that goes with that. But he carries us forward, telling the people to be fruitful and multiply twice here in just 7 verses. These are commands that are not just given to Noah. We know they're given to Adam, and they're given elsewhere, I believe. No time at any point in Scripture do we find where God says, that's a really bad idea, let's stop doing that. The earth is not too full of people. The earth is not. That's very contrary to what we might hear. Maybe contrary to what you might hear in churches some places. I've heard that on Christian radio, going in line with the idea that there's just too many people, because some people, one line of thought is some people are starving. So there's too many people. But the issue isn't there's a lack of food. The issue is getting the food to the people. Through problems of war, communication, travel, expediting things, and things of that sort. That's the reason. And even if there wasn't enough food, you know, it's sort of like if everybody needs a hat. Does everybody need a hat? Okay, everybody needs a hat, but we don't have enough hats, so we've got a couple options. We can build a hat factory, or we can start cutting people's heads off. Those are your two options if everybody has to have a hat. Of course, we would want to build a factory to make more hats for everyone. You know, if we really lack food, we would want to plant food, but generally that's not the problem, but it's getting the food there. God never rescinds this. He never says this is a bad idea, we've got too many people and I don't know what I was thinking. He doesn't do that, by all accounts he never will until he returns, and we do not know what our future holds. We know we shall be with him forever, and that's the thing to focus upon. Figuring out all the details of the millennium and anything that might be out past that, we don't know. But what we do know is what we have here: be fruitful and multiply, replenish the earth. And verse 2, the fear of you and dread of you, or could be terror of you, shall be upon every beast, upon the fowl, upon everything that moves, all the fishes. Into your hand are they delivered. And so there's a wall of separation there between people and animals. And they shall fear you. And why would they fear you? Well, the next verse tells us why they should have a pretty good fear of man, and that's because you can eat them if you want. And you know, if something was wanting to eat me, I would probably be pretty scared of them. You know, I don't come in contact with that too often, I don't think. You know, that we might think of a big nasty bear that might try to eat you if you messed with his dinner or with her children. Her cubs might try to mess with you. But, you know, shall be upon the beasts of the earth, all the fowl, everything. You know, when the child sees the bird in the lawn and they try, oh, that's just lovely. I love bird. And what do? They try and chase the bird down. And what does the bird do? It sits right there and lets them, no, it doesn't sit right there at all, does it? It flies away, fulfilling exactly what we see here. Everything that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green herb have I given you all things. So some would point here, we don't really know, there's no sense in getting any arguments about it either, though some people can argue just about anything. You know, you name it, and we could, some people just like to do that. But some would point here, everything was given, you could eat any type of meat you wanted here, and then later in Leviticus God changed that and said, no, you can't do that to the Israelites, because, well, they're not really sure why, but he did that. I'm not so sure that's what it means here. I think there was already definitely a designation. I think it's in chapter 8, where, and definitely in the previous chapters, we find what? We find bring 2 of every kind, but of the clean ones, make sure you bring 7. One of those could have been, one reason definitely is for sacrifice, because they had sacrifice. As soon as they got off the ark in verse 20, and Noah built an altar unto the Lord and took of every clean beast, every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. It could have been, that's the only reason. It could have been because that's primarily what they were eating. I don't know. You know, it does say every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you. Granted. It also says, even as the green herb have I given you all things. But people clearly don't eat all green things. Some of them are quite damaging to your system, and you can't eat them. Even some of these green herbs are damaging to some of the animals. As I was listening to Mr. Craniac talk about how his chickens got into some weed and they started dying. And I thought, really? I thought a chicken could eat just about anything and live. But no, apparently there's something. I don't know what the name of it was, but he said I had to keep him away from that. He says it happens to cattle. So in that sense, that verse, you know, we don't eat every green herb. We eat ones that are healthy, and, well, hopefully we eat some green things. But we certainly can and should. But we don't eat everything, so it could mean other things. Just throwing that out there, not here meant to be a chief point of the study or an argumentative point, but throwing it out there. Flesh with life thereof, which is blood thereof, shall you not eat. So that's verse 4, and it tells us our animal, before you eat it, it needs to be dead. It needs to be dead. And it better not have any blood in it. And you should not eat blood. And we actually find that we find that mentioned actually in the New Testament as well. That's one of the chief requirements that they gave for the Gentiles in Acts chapter 15, and I mentioned a couple other places, was, nothing strangled, no blood, no fornication, and something else, but I can't remember. That's one of the things in Acts 15, verse 20, abstain from pollutions of idols. So stay out of the idol temple, stay away from fornication, from things strangled, and from blood. So that's mentioned in the New Testament, so that's a law that applies to us today. So are you allowed to eat a rare steak? This isn't really something that I've ever heard talked about, but there be within the context. I don't like my steaks rare anyway, so I don't like any blood in them whatsoever. I don't like them charred like some people I'm related to, totally dried out and just tough as shoe leather. But I don't like anything like that, so I can't really speak to that. But one thing, Acts chapter 15 and verse 20 and verse 29 repeats it, and I think it's repeated one other place as well. I think if you look at context, which isn't brought out a whole lot by most people, but all of those things pertain to the idol temple. What was the big problem the Gentiles had in that time, in that day? They were worshiping idols. The Jews even set up boundaries to where you couldn't even walk on the same side of the street as their house because you might walk past an idol or something. And really what all those are dealing with are separation for the Gentiles to stay out of the idol temple. And all of those are tied into that: blood, fornication, idols, obviously, strangling. They did that sometimes as well for their sacrifices in the idol temple. But again, with blood, not to drink it, not to eat it. I've seen some places where that's like a rite of passage for people. They have to drink some blood from some sort of animal, and once you've done that, you've really arrived and you're really there. I mean, that might sell movie tickets, but it's contrary to what we find within our Bibles. Really, regardless of where we look, whether you want to look in Genesis 9, or you want to look in Acts 15, or a host of other places in between, we know. But looking in Acts gets you past any problems dealing with law, pre-law, or anything of the sort. This here as well is pre-law, we might be wanting to point out, as we are in Genesis 9, not anywhere close to Leviticus at this point, and separated by quite a few years from that point. So don't eat blood. I don't know if any of you struggle with that, but if you do, don't do it, okay? What was that one stuff? Yeah, right, yeah. I never even knew what that stuff was, and I looked it up, I was like, that's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard of. Blood sausage, or is there like a blood pudding, or is that the same thing, or something to that? You can look that up if you want. I'm already beyond my level of dealing with that. So, don't eat the blood, that's the life. And where do we find it? Leviticus 17. Life of flesh is in the blood, which... what was the practice of, a couple hundred years ago, or maybe even less than that, it was in dealing with how they would care for sick people. They would bleed them. They have to get their blood out, which actually what we're finding here is that you need to leave your blood in. That's where your life is. And, of course, they don't do that a whole lot anymore. And I can't remember the amount, but George Washington, when he died, had, I don't know how much, basically that's probably what killed him, is they bled him so much because he's got this bad blood in him, and we have to get that out to help him get better. did nothing of the sort, they'd probably killed him. But he was an old man anyway, and he shouldn't have been out riding in that rainstorm either, and he wouldn't listen to people, but he's a tough old bird, and he's gone now. All right, blood, and then we're moving into verses 5 and 6. Surely your blood of your lives will I require. So he's going to require your life. At the hand of every beast will I require it. At the hand of man. At the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God made he man. So he's saying, point blank, don't kill people. This could be taken a variety of places, but clearly what we find here, what we want to separate out is... it's sort of interesting there. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be. Well, who's the man that decides, and all that. But setting up the beginnings here, I think, of government. Genesis 9, again, we find another principle in Genesis 1 through 11 here. Government. But what we do clearly see, and that's whether it's you or your brother. I'm not sure why that separation is in there, but you can't have your brother do it either if you want somebody killed. And even at the animals, he's going to require it. This distinction is not laid out for other things. And why the reason is given here in verse 6. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. Why? Because in the image of God made he man. Now that's a very important that is in there. I was not as aware of how important that is. I mean, I knew it was in there, and I had no doubts that mankind is made in the image of God. I had no doubts about that. We know that from Genesis 1. But a problem you may run into, which I ran into once, nearly, I don't think they were quite smart enough or dumb enough, if you want to head that way, but they would say, well, those before sin, Adam and Eve, clearly the only ones, they were made in the image of God. But now, we don't have that image of God. We're no longer like that. In a sense, we are no longer like that, but we're in the sense that we're no longer without sin. That goes without saying. I rode my bike for 8.5 miles today, and everybody else did too in my family, just about. Hosanna didn't. It was hot and sweaty and humid. I was like, I think I'd have rather rode yesterday when it was 100 than today. No, not really. But, why was the effects of sin right there was some of them. I was hot and tired, and it was rough. And everybody else thought it was rough too, and a few people were talking about it. But this is very important. We're after sin, but yet here we clearly see a reason you can't do that, because he's made in the image of God. He's made in the image of God. So don't let anyone try, which actually sort of threw me for a loop. I was like, well, does it say that anywhere? Well, right here we go. Right here we go. We have this. And very important to have this right here. Remember it. Don't let anyone lead you astray saying, usually it's an argument within abortion. It doesn't matter because we're not in the image of God anymore. Clearly we are. Clearly we are. This speaks to it. Verse 6, very important. Tying in with abortion, again, he closes there, be fruitful, multiply, bring forth abundantly, and multiply therein. Something that people don't want to do today either is the fact of multiplying. They might want to do the act to try to get to that point, but they never want to bring forth the children, and certainly not to raise them up properly. Rebecca Lang, can you sit down, please? And that's true within churches, and that's true outside of churches. I mean, we would expect it to be true outside of churches, true in churches. Every statistic is the same, no matter where we go. The one of the statistics in the latest census in 2010 showed the average amount of children, I think, per household was 0.9. Now, that's pretty low. That's not a whole lot of people, seeing how it's less than one. And that was per household. That means every house, and that was average. So yeah, some of them have a lot more, but some of them have a lot more. Even one that has 2, that means the next one right beside it has 0. So you think about one that has 10. The next 5 houses, doom, 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 doom. Our next 4 houses, our next. Actually, no, we're going by 0.9, less than 1. The next 9 houses for those would be nothing. Got a serious issue there. And some European countries are actually, they don't have enough people to reproduce or to produce, fill the population back. So causing problems there, and also causing problems with Islam coming in. So many people coming in, they're coming in faster than they're producing themselves through natural means that God has laid out. So don't run away from that. It's laid out. Yeah, this was written a long time ago, or spoken a long time ago. It was written a long time ago too, and we would go with the idea that Moses either wrote it down from oral tradition, or Moses wrote it down collected from, perhaps from Noah, or perhaps from one of his sons. But nonetheless, written by Moses a long time ago, spoken by Noah and God a long time ago. This is God speaking here. Verse 8, and God spake unto Noah and his sons with him, saying, so he's speaking to all of them, and behold, I establish my covenant with you, and with your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl, and of the cattle, and of every beast of the earth with you, from all that go out to the ark, to every beast of the earth. And I will establish my covenant with you, neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood, neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. Verses 8, 9, 10, 11 here, within chapter 9, God's speaking to them and establishing a covenant and speaking to them and telling them. And interesting, I established my covenant with you, Noah, and with his sons there, and with your seed after you, those who will come after him, and with every living creature that is with you. Establishing a covenant with the animals as well. Interesting. Fowl, cattle, every beast of the earth, from all that go out to the ark, to every beast of the earth. So that's pretty much all of them. I will establish my covenant with you. And what this covenant here, what he's telling us, is something that we've already hit on in the end of chapter 8. And what was that? Well, Noah built the ark, or the altar, and Noah built the ark as well. But here we're looking at the end of chapter 8, verses 20, 21, and 22. He built an altar, offered sacrifices there, and what did God do with that? He received it, and he said, I'll never more, ever again, do this again, where I will destroy the earth. And he says in verse 22 there, we'll always have seed time and harvest, though some years the harvest apparently won't be too good, as we can read the headlines and see that's true. But establishing covenant there, neither shall all flesh be cut off anymore. Notice again the inclusiveness here of everything that is spoken. If we really take this, to mean what it says, and that's kind of crazy sometimes, but just doing that for just a moment, he's establishing this here. I will establish my covenant with you, neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood. Neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. Now, either this was a worldwide flood, and God says he's not going to do that anymore, or it wasn't, and God's a liar. Those are our two options there. Or it doesn't really matter what it says because I don't care what it says. I guess that's a third option that many people would go with. Nobody wants to call God a liar. I mean, that's a little bit blunt and upfront and laying it right out there. But either that, or we literally say, I think there really was a worldwide flood. But what's he saying here? All flesh. What's all flesh? Well, that pretty much means that everything cut off by the waters of a flood. Now, we do see local floods, we see big floods, we see them happen, but we never see, of course, we wouldn't be able to talk about it if we did, would we? A worldwide flood. We don't see that. And but God is saying, I won't do that ever again. I will not do that ever again. And we're thankful for that. Thankful for that. And hearing, just, you can hear about the devastation that happens in small events. And, think about one that covers the entire earth, covering the hills to 20-some feet over them, and on it goes, massive. And we just see little things happening in our day, in our time, the way things are playing out. Okay, he's establishing a covenant, and God said, this is a token of a covenant, or sign, or, which I've made between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. So, this is for everybody. This is for you. This is for my dog. This is for your chickens. This is for everybody. This is for the snake I saw crawling on the ground. This is for all of them. This is a token. And what I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. It shall come to pass when I bring cloud over the earth that the bow shall be seen in the cloud. And I will remember my covenant which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the waters shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. And the bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it, that I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, this is the token of the covenant I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth. All right, so we've got the rainbow here, and what was this another thing we could see, it's easy to find stuff to argue about. Another thing you might want to argue about with your fellow Christian is, was this the first time the rainbow appeared? Or was the rainbow always there and God just suddenly said, you know what, I like that right over there, that's my sign for you. And even though I've had it there for 1,500 years. I would go with the idea that this is the first time it happened. Now, if you disagree with that, that's fine. We can just disagree. But I'm of the belief that the atmosphere changed from after the flood to before the flood. Something happened there. If something didn't happen there, there's a lot of strange things and things that we really can't understand as to how was there a worldwide flood if it was under current conditions. We know that the clouds you just can't get that much water. You just can't do it. We do know water fountains, windows of heaven opened up. What were the windows of heaven? I think that was part of the atmosphere and part of the vapor. Sort of like a canopy, but that has problems. But we do know that it was different. We do know a lot of things were different. We know that people lived a long, long time. We know that animals lived a long, long time. That's how we find big ones in rock layers today. And we also know that we need, basically for a rainbow, you need sun and you need water. You need those two things in the atmosphere there. And, if the atmosphere was different and there wasn't necessarily water but more of a vapor mist, then we wouldn't have had a rainbow. Now, could there have been a rainbow before? Sure, there could have been. No problem. We're all going to heaven whether we think there was a rainbow or there wasn't a rainbow, as long as we're under the blood of Christ. Don't want to say everybody's going to heaven. We do need that. But, this isn't a deciding factor for us, I don't think. But that's just my thoughts on it. If you think that the rainbow did happen before this, that's fine. But a lot of people, of course, we know a group of people that would say it's always been there. And those are the people that say everything's always been the same and there was never a worldwide flood, and because it's just ridiculous to think such a thing. If things changed, and they did, Clearly, people don't live anywhere as long as they did. What caused that? What caused that? Well, a few things we could look. We could look at the atmosphere. We could look at just God setting things up like that. Some would point to chapter 6 of Genesis where it says 120 years for man. 120 years for man. So they would say, well, that's how long man's going to live now. I don't necessarily agree with that. Not that I think people live longer than 120 years. Certainly they don't. But most people don't live to 120 years. Most people don't. I think that was more dealing with the time frame to how much longer they had left before the flood happened there and judgment was coming. Again, just some of my thoughts. The rainbow in the cloud, and we do know that this is God's sign for us. We also know that some people have hijacked that within our culture and in our day, but nonetheless, it is God's sign to us and to everyone. Whether you're a believer or not, it's still a sign to you that He will never destroy it again, the earth. He will never destroy the earth again. That's not a sign that there will never be another local flood, because they happen every day. I don't know, every day. They happen every year, all the time, all over the world. And, to say, if it's a local flood, then this is just pure nonsense again. It doesn't make any sense if it's a local flood saying, well, we got the rainbow, so He said, He would never do that again, even though it was just local flood, and even though that happens all the time. But token or sign of my covenant, which I established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth. The sons of Noah went forth out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan. Now we're getting to an interesting section here within Genesis, and we'll probably come back and talk a little bit about it next week as well. He mentions Ham as father of Canaan, so he's mentioning Canaan there specifically. What in the world is he doing that for? And we know that curse is coming here. Some thought that maybe Canaan is mentioned here because when Moses was writing, who were they writing? Who were they dealing with? Well, they were dealing with the Canaanites there and trying to get them out of the land because that's what God had commanded them to do. These are 3 sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. So of these 3 sons is where everybody came from. So, are you related to so-and-so? And some of you have fantastic second, third, once removed, second removed cousins that can tell me stories on in. But in a sense, we're all cousins somewhere down the line. As we go back to these 3 individuals, and before that we go back to 1. And the whole earth was spread over by them. Verse 20, Noah began to be a husbandman, and he planted a vineyard, and he drank of the wine, and was drunken. He was uncovered within his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, told his 2 brethren without. So, by reading this, what we find here, Noah planted a vineyard. He drank some wine from it. Says he was drunk. He was uncovered within his tent. When you read that, it's like, okay, so what? He didn't have any clothes on, or what? What's the problem there? Ham, the father of Canaan, remember, he sees the nakedness of his father, so he walks in and sees him, and he tells his 2 brothers without. And Shem and Japheth take a garment and they lay it upon their shoulders, and they walk backward in there and cover up the nakedness of their father. And their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. So they didn't see it. Exactly what's going on there leads to much speculation by many people, and exactly what, did he walk in? I mean, what the text says to us blatantly there, and all you can for sure get out of it, is that Noah planted a vineyard, he drank some wine, he got drunk, he was uncovered within his tent. Ham goes in and sees that he is naked, tells his 2 brothers outside, and they go in backwards and cover him up. So that's You know, if you read this and that's what it is, then I didn't understand what the big deal is. And Noah wakes up and knew what his younger son had done unto him. And he said, as before, when I was reading this, throughout the years, you read it, and you, cursed be Canaan, and if you're not careful, you don't even check out, well, Canaan didn't even do nothing there. Well, what do you do with that? And some, I'm not saying this is necessarily what I believe, but I was looking at it and found it interesting. He was uncovered within his tent. Ham saw the nakedness of his father. Elsewhere, nakedness of this person or that person. Leviticus 18 talks a lot about that. A lot of people think that term may mean more than what it may mean to you. What it means to me is put some clothes on. What's the problem here? They think that it may mean sexual activity. And Leviticus 18 speaks a lot about that and the law there, and it talks about the nakedness of this person or that person or this or that or whatever it might happen to be. It's Leviticus 18:6. None of you shall approach to any near kin to him to uncover their nakedness. I am the Lord. What does that mean? You going to go up and take their clothes off? The nakedness of thy father, or thy mother shall thou not uncover, she is thy mother. The nakedness of thy father's wife shall thou not uncover, is thy father's nakedness. Nakedness of thy sister. Goes down the line. Okay, what's it talking about? It's talking about people that, keeping in context of the chapter of Leviticus 18, this is one of that chapter is the one place where you can, without a doubt, point to, no wiggling out of this one, on homosexuality being a sin. And that's verse 22 of Leviticus 18. They wiggle out of, or they try to. I do not agree with these interpretations, but what people will say is Romans 1, 1 Corinthians 6, on and on. When you're dealing with homosexuality, they'll say, well, that's unfaithful homosexuality, but if you're faithful, monogamous within a homosexual relationship, it's okay. Leviticus 18:22 is right there. You don't lie with men like you do with women. Okay? It's an abomination. Okay, what's he dealing with here? A lot of sexual sin is dealt with in Leviticus 18. Is it likely that he's talking about you can't go around peeking through people's bathroom windows to look at them while they're in the shower? That's probably not what it's dealing with. I don't know if that was a big problem. It's likely dealing with sexual sin. Was there some sort of sexual sin going on here in Genesis 9? It's possible. Is that definitely what it was? I don't know. I just think it's kind of odd, nakedness of his father didn't have any clothes on. He tells his brothers outside and he gets in big trouble. Or his son gets in big trouble. We'll come back to this. One thing people think is that, and this seems crazy to me, and probably to you, but you see it other times throughout history, in the Israel history here, where a son would go and lay with his father. This happened to David. This happened to others as well, though I can't think of their names off the top of my head. Where Jacob, was it Judah, laid with his father's concubine, challenging the authority. So some are saying that's what happened there, and they said the curse on Canaan is because he was the offspring of that. Now, is that gospel and you should go preach it from the street corner? Probably not. But it may give some explanation to it. I don't know. It's possible that he saw his nakedness, saw his dad with no clothes on, and he went and was laughing about it to his brothers. I don't know. But it doesn't say that. It just says, so for us to say, well, that's kind of a stretch. Well, for us to say he was mocking and laughing about it is a stretch as well. All it says is he went and told his two brothers outside, and they heard what he did. What's going on. There's a lot going on there that we don't know. and what we see here. But that was something where they would challenge authority, and they would do that, and it just seems crazy to me. But that's, to me, I guess because I'm an American, But if you want to challenge somebody's authority in America, what do? You say, hey, meet me outside at 12 o'clock, and I'm going to challenge your, that's what people do. They say, we'll settle this one. What's going, I don't know, but we'll come back and look at that and the rest of this and prophecy and what all Noah says there to it, and through the end of the chapter there. We'll come back to that. And we'll go ahead and close for this evening, as it is 7:59 and 52 seconds. So we're about out of time. Let us pray. Dear God, we thank you for this day, for this time together, and for each one that is here. We thank you for your word, and we thank you for your promises that you have left us, that you will forever remember them. And we thank you for the gift of life that you have given us, and we thank you for your promise that you would never destroy the earth through water. We thank you for being made in your image, and for having that gift alone above all of your creation. And we praise your name for that. Thank you for that, and we thank you for your gift of redemption that Noah and his sons were looking for, but as we can look back upon. And we praise your name for that through the death and resurrection of Christ. We give you glory and praise, and pray that you would be with us as we go from here. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. You're dismissed.